All right. Hey, here with my friend Sean, also teammate.
Try that one more time without adjusting in your chair.
All right. I am here with my friend Sean. All right, I'm here with my friend and teammate Sean. We just wanted to talk about kind of where he came from, a little bit of his background, leading up to some of his proper military experience, and then some of his Wild West Ukraine experience. So, kind of start out one of the funnier stories, I guess, how old you were when you joined the military properly, and then what led you to joining, basically.
So I was 16 when I joined. It was something I'd always wanted to do. So yeah, 16 years and 9 months old I was. So yeah.
Yeah, and then at that time, clearly it was legal, which in the United States, not really a thing. But what about your job? What'd you do? Did you get to pick?
So yeah, it was one of those where you turn up to the careers office and you're asked to pick two choices. So you have a first and a second choice. My first choice was the parachute regiment. My second choice was the Royal Anglians. It was just one of those kind of things. I initially weighed, I think it was 50 something kilos, which is approximately half of what I weigh now. But yeah, it was quite a big ask. So I was actually in, it was a failed test program. So at the time, before I joined, they used to have a thing called junior para. After I joined, they had Army Foundation College, and I was in the in-between stage. So they kind of tested out whether 16-year-olds could kind of go to depot with all the adults. Most of us got kind of broken. Yeah, it was probably not the best idea, but you know, it was tried out for a little while.
And then during this testing program, that's when they injected you with the Wolverine stuff, and that made you, so you can't be killed, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, and then from there, how long did you spend in para? Deployments from there, kind of experiences there. What do you think as a 16-year-old in the military?
So I went to depot, past depot. So I think we started off with 50 or 60 guys. We passed out with 10, went to 2 para, and kind of had a military career from there onwards. My first operational tour was in Northern Ireland. After that, so after Northern Ireland, I went to Sierra Leone, Macedonia, Afghanistan, Iraq, pretty much all of those places while I was in Para-Reg. But yeah, it was a funny time.
I mean, were there other people that young with you for the most part? Or, I mean, when you go in there and you're doing these deployments, is everyone, 10 years older than you type of thing?
Yeah, it was a little strange. So when I kind of first turned up to depot, everybody else seemed a hell of a lot older. So there was one other guy called, well, I won't name him, but he was another guy who'd pretty much been told it's either kind of a kid's prison or you join the army. So he joined the army. He ended up in our first battalion and had a fairly decent career. Yeah, it was, most of the kids got broken, so pretty much everybody got kind of injured in some way or another. But
what was it? What do you think made you a little different where you didn't get broken?
yeah, it was just one of those. I don't know whether it was mindset, luck, flip of the coin, or what it was, but yeah, I managed to kind of squeeze through one of the slightly larger holes in the net and ended up in 2 para. But
and how long did you spend in 2 para?
14 years I spent in 2 para. Yeah. So yeah, most of those, I think 11 of those were in the battalion sniper platoon. So Yeah.
And then what led you to make the decision to try your hand at something a little bit more high speed?
So, selection was one of those kind of things. Always wanted to kind of give a try. Eventually kind of squeezed through one of the even bigger holes in that net and get to that unit. But it was just one of those kind of things. It was the highest kind of form of soldiering, and that was all I really wanted to do.
Not giving yourself much credit there, just squeezing through big holes,
Yeah.
apparently one after another. The hardest big hole in probably the entire world's military.
Yeah.
Just happened to make it through. And then, so how long did you spend in that unit? Kind of, what were your roles there? Or, you know, even the process of selection. What, you don't have to say numbers, but percentage-wise, what would you say? You know,
So
percentage of people making it through.
I think we started with, I can't remember, maybe a couple of hundred guys, and that gets slimmed down to, I think I passed with 10 again. So 10 guys kind of got through that, which works out as, I'm not sure what percentage, but it's a low percent, which is kind of average. So they've ran selections where no one has passed. They've ran selections where more people have passed. It kind of goes up and down over the years.
And then did you get to, you came from a sniper at 2-para, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that carried over? Did you have a choice, or did you just say, hey, this is what you're doing for your role?
No, it was one of those things that I really enjoyed doing. I like the smell of wet Hessian, but that's just one of those kind of things. So the head sniper in my unit took me on the range, saw how I could shoot, and was like, okay, yeah, you've kind of got a job. So that was it.
And then you were a patrol medic as well.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you know, CQB instructor. So how do you end up as a patrol medic in
So-
addition to what you were doing?
It was everybody that goes in the unit, you either go one way or the other way. So you either take demolitions or med. And I was lucky enough to kind of get med. So yeah, that was something that I kind of fell over backwards into, really enjoyed. Yeah, that was all right.
Yeah, you still got both ass cheeks, so no
Yeah.
dems for you.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice. And then how long did you spend there?
So I think all up in regular service, I spent 10 years with the unit, and another, I think 3 after that in reserve service. But yeah, it was a good time.
What was what would you say was like a moment where you're like, oh fuck, this is a little bit different than 2-para? Did you have that singular moment?
Probably on the first kind of exercise that we went on. So going on my first exercise, jumped in with my unit, hit the ground, was then kind of about to get up, pack my chute, get my gear, you know, get my rifle and everything, and the squadron sergeant major and the OC actually did that for me, and I was kind of like, okay, that's a bit different from 2-para. But I think the thing to remember with that unit is nobody feels above kind of picking up a shovel, picking up a broom, or just doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that was reflected when, you know, we would do our missions together, where typically, you know, you were always the point man, no matter what we did, crossing the minefield,
Yeah.
assaulting anything, and you're like, yeah, it'll be me. And everyone's like, all right, well, like try not to fucking die while you're out there. You know, not supposed to be like this, but
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of a real life reflection, you know, on that mentality. All right, so from there, so you spent about 10, 11 years there.
Yeah.
With that whole time. Now, is there anything, I don't know, anything there, you know, carrying over to Ukraine, things like that, kind of the shift from what we talk about, you know, the 20 years of GWAT type of war, and then shifting over to Ukraine. And you had mentioned in like Syria, you had seen, you know, Russian drones, things like that, but
Yeah.
what do you think a little bit of a different ones between those
So
two?
It was incredibly different. Kind of getting out of the military. I got out into the COVID disaster. Kind of ended up working in Libya for a little while. From Libya, I think I moved over to Zambia. Zambia, I went to Nigeria. Nigeria, I went to Qatar. Qatar, I went to Costa Rica, and then after that, I ended up in Ukraine. So Ukraine originally, the idea was just put some food on the table, pay the bills, and that's all it was. So I got a job with a company that looks after a lot of our kind of ex-guys, and I managed to go and get a job looking after news crews. Realised after not very long that I don't really get along with news crews, but yeah, that was a long rocky road. But
Yeah, I know you had mentioned previously that there are some singular situations that really kind of set you off. I want to say you were in Bucha or Irpin, one of the two, and kind of had a rough time there. Can you say kind of really what turned you, I guess?
yeah, there was, how would you say, you kind of realise after kicking around with, how would you say, some of the journalists, you realise that they honestly don't give a crap about the people or anything that you're looking at. To them, it's literally just money. So doing that kind of day in, day out, it wore a little thin after a while.
This is the type of thing where they're kind of just making up stories to fit their narrative, right?
Yeah, so they would decide on an average day or get told what the narrative of that day was. They would go out, clip pictures, speak to people, soundbite everything, and pretty much make it fit whatever the narrative was they decided on last night, the week before. They would make it kind of fit. So that was kind of something quite unpleasant.
And then your role with them was just kind of security, making sure they're safe type of
Yeah,
thing.
it was trying to make sure no journalists exploded when they shouldn't do. But yeah.
Do you have any close calls, or was there anything really going on in the spots that you guys had went?
Yeah, I mean, we had a cruise missile kind of fly over our heads in Zaporizhia, so that did kind of. I can remember the journalist looking at it and he was like, "That was a low-flying plane." I was like, "No, it wasn't." You can tell by the big explosion just down the street, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had spoke at that time. We were in the same area.
Yeah.
Of you, we were probably, I don't know how far away. We were 800 meters away from each other, not knowing it.
Yeah.
And
Nuts.
I think we had 4 or 5 cruise missiles fairly close
Yeah.
to where we were at that time too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then from there, so you got fed up with the news guys.
Yeah.
And then kind of where'd that take you afterwards?
So afterwards, I had, how would you say, become aware of a group run by an ex-MARSOC guy that was apparently training up Ukrainians that kind of needed it. And at the same time, their dual role was to go and extract civilians out of pretty bad situations. So anywhere that was looking at getting surrounded, cut off, or overrun, they would go in and get the civilians out. So I ended up going to work for them. So yeah, that was kind of a bit of a dual role. So you would end up training, and I ended up running their extraction team for a little while. But
was this the group you were doing extractions, no weapon?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
That was
that's a cool move.
Yeah.
That's actually, you get a badge for that. Doing war zone extractions with no weapon.
Yeah. Some of that was a little rough. So one particular town began with an M. The how would you say, the group's commander, we were doing an extraction from another area completely, and he was like, I'm just going to drive down to the front line with these guys. And I was looking at the local, where he was a vicar, like an army vicar, if you like. So I was looking at this guy and the other guy, and I was like, we can't do that alone. And I goes, I'll go with you. And he was like, no, it's all right. I was like, no, you're not doing that alone. I'll come with you. We jump in the car, and it really stunk of marijuana. So I was like, can you smell weed? And he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, in for a penny then. Let's do it. So we ended up driving. Suddenly all the trees start getting blown down, and there's a load of mess all over the road. We're kind of weaving in and out of shell holes. It's like, this place has been pretty trashed. And the next thing we know, got a Ukrainian soldier pointing a rifle at us and jumps out in the middle of the road. He's like, points to this, like a little bust up underground garage. We pull off the road, get dragged out of the car, you know, AK muzzle under the nostril. And they were like, do you realise if you'd have driven a few extra 100 metres down that road, you would have hit the Russian army? We're the front line. And I was like, shit, pull your phone out, Google yourself, and just show them who you are with all your ribbons and tapes on your uniform. And he was like, I haven't got a signal. So we had a bit of a moment there where eventually they managed to get somebody that spoke English, eventually let us go. We kind of got a bit released. We drove around a corner and up another road, and the same thing happened. We ended up getting dragged out of the car, and it was even worse. And in the end, they got their commander to come over. We told them who we were, and we ended up having quite a decent relationship with that unit. But yeah, that was kind of exciting.
What timeline wise, when is that, month, year?
Ooh, that would have been, let's have a look, maybe May time last
2022?
year.
Yeah, that sounds like early war type of things.
Yeah, so that was kind of exciting. So we kind of drove back like that. Jesus, that was an experience. But
yeah, did you have a rape whistle on you or anything to defend against the Russian military?
We didn't have anything, but
yeah, I could have saved you. All right, so then in May, and then I think we met up with you end of June or early July, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably pretty shortly after.
Yeah.
I think we had signed our paperwork together, and then kind of went on from there with some of our favorite and least favorite people all in one. Yeah, so I guess if you want to talk about maybe that little bit of time from the July to September, October time frame, and kind of what you were up to. I know, but for everyone else, you know, kind of what you were up to in that time.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a difference from what you were doing before.
So, yeah, I kind of got sold the Legion on kind of some false promises. So I was told that the unit I was going for, they do this, that and the other. They run human teams, they're blowing up trains in the forests and everything, working way behind the lines. And I was like, sweet, that sounds like a bit of me. Yeah, I'll kind of go for that. When I turned up, I kind of realised that I'd been sold a bit of a donkey. Turned up, and it was literally the guy that had sold me that donkey literally kind of brushed his hands and was like, over to you, it's your game. And I was kind of like, holy shit. So I kind of wore that for a little while. Tried to kind of get a few jobs going. Yeah, me and Ned was one of the other TLs in that group. We got called in to help with the planning of another big mission. And while we were down there, we kind of got asked, do you want to go fighting? And it was like, yeah, we do. He was like, right, okay, get yourself to here. So we drove all the way, eating jelly babies and Monster.
The usual diet for you?
Kind of got down there and I got told, okay, you're leading black team, as it was. So I was like, okay, right. And that kind of kicked off probably a little bit of an epic. So the job, how it was explained to us was some guys were going to swim down a river a good couple of kilometres, get to a pre-planned kind of landing point, recce or recon it for mines and Russians, make sure it was all kind of safe, and then kind of give us the call over the radios. We were going to come in as 26 men. It was 26 men. We're going to land all quietly, all on night vision, sneak into the bottom part of a village, try and clear it very quietly and gain a foothold. When we gained that foothold, we were going to send on the radios, and that was going to kick off engineers blowing a bank down to make it flatter so armour could kind of pull up it. Armour was then going to drive across the quite shallow river, swing a left turn and move in and support us. We also had some engineers that were going to clear through the mines that were just behind us. And all of that was going to be with quite heavy artillery support, tanks, a BMP to get the wounded out. To say it didn't work out that way would be an understatement. So we turned up there and I was expecting to see, you know, tons of tanks, armour, artillery and everything. And we got there and there was nobody, just some inflatable boats. So we were like, boom, 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 just got absolutely pummeled with quite accurate drone controlled mortars and artillery at the actual embarkation point for this landing. The lads had already swum down the river to recce that. One of the boats got damaged. We all took cover in some buildings. We sent teams down. It caused quite a significant delay. We were supposed to land in pure darkness. It ended up pushing into daylight. And we landed, and as my team was headed down the river, we got, I don't know, 100 odd yards away from the kind of D-bus point, the beach landing, if you will. And it sounded like the entire universe opened up. So loads of small arms fire, loads of explosions. I was like that to the boat driver, get down there now. So he puts a kind of spurt on. We pull up. You see the lead medic for those 26 men, shot through the thigh, self-tourniqueting on the beach. So he didn't quite make it anywhere. He literally jumped off a boat and got dropped. Two rockets get fired. I crawl up. I'm like, what is happening? And it was an ex-SFSG lad was like, Charlie team's gone long. I'm like, okay, right, everyone get on my back, follow me. Kind of charged after Charlie team, tried to catch them, couldn't. They kind of did a little chicane through a load of buildings and ran smack into a PKM at point blank range. Took another couple of wounded. We'd left 2 guys on the riverbank for the apparent reinforcements. So we were now down to 10 guys. We kind of hooked in. The team commander of the team that had ran into the PKM, and it was literally nose to nose. So I'm talking 5 yards or less, full frontal arc, PKM, rifles, the whole lot. He tries telling me where to put guys, and I'm like, mate, go away. You just got your guys chewed up. Like, I'll decide which way we're going. So tried to kind of push round on a left hook. Couple of Kiwis nearly got dropped. Pulled them back out of the way, tried a right hook, same. So I was like, right, okay. I think all up I threw maybe 7 grenades, something like that. Other guys threw another couple. We tried everything. So we tried 40mm grenade, trying to get that through the wood at the top. It just bounced back. We tried hitting it with an RPG, so we got the beach landing kind of team to back up to the minimum safe distance with an RPG. They smacked an RPG into it, so the whole place was smoking. When I say throw grenades, it was literally kind of posting them right on top of the enemy. I ended up in a bit of a, what would you say, a duel with a PKM gunner. So he was probably about 5 yards away, and in between us was an asbestos gate. And I watched his group size right in front of me grow from 1 round to probably about that big. I held my ground, end up hitting him in the pelvis. He dropped. I was then like, right, okay. I think it was Charlie team had a linguist in it. So I was like, right, you know, give it a go. He was like, look, you're surrounded by special forces. You're going to be killed if you don't give up. You know, it's only going to get worse. And he was told to fuck off with a massive burst of PKM. That got kind of weird. So we tried a few different things, and I was like, I'm out of options. Has anyone got anything weird that we haven't used? Somebody just puts a thermite grenade in front of me. So thermite is one of those kind of weird things. I think you and the Russians kind of use it for equipment destroying. And I get this kind of Coke can thing put in my hand, and I was like, oh, fuck it, here we go then. Pulled the pin, shout thermite out, throw it over, big flare up, load of smoke. And I was like, linguist, give it another go. So he tries the same thing, and the lads that were in the building got their youngest unwounded man and threw him out of the door. So in he comes, like, had to stop some unseemly things happening to him, grabbed him, sat him on the floor, and he was really shaking. And I mean, literally, you know, like he had a road drill in his hands. And I was like, right, zip tie him, tell him he's done well, but it's game over. I goes, throw him back in there and tell him to get everybody to come out. So we zip tied him, threw him back in, and it wasn't that long after, so probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 seconds after we threw him in, it was, he came out, then the next guy, then the next guy, the next guy, the next guy. I think all up it was 9 men we captured out of that house. So they were all fragged up, all marked up with grenade frag. And I think, to be honest, it was the thermite that actually just broke their will. It kind of freaked them out a little and was a little weird. So that happened. The guy that I'd shot through the pelvis, he was laid on the floor next to an unexploded impact grenade. So the way they work is they work on a 3 to 4 second fuse, or it's got a little ball bearing in it. So if you took one, pulled the pin and dropped it in a swimming pool, the change in kind of gravity would make that ball kind of roll and initiate the explosive. So there was an unexploded one of those literally laid right next to this wounded guy. So I goes to the commander of Charlie team, we need to get him up and out of here. And he was like, why? And I'm like, that's fucking why. He's like, yep, okay. So we scooped him up, carried him back to the medic, and he checked out not long after that. So that kind of kicked off a big chain of events. My team was now lead assault. We needed to left hook around the building that we'd just taken and hit the next kind of compound, if you will. It was one of those where I think it was Ned was like, front gates are out, we can't use them, they'll be wired to blow. I was like, yeah, agreed. So I was like, go get the sledgehammer out of that building. So we ended up with a sledgehammer. I got past that. I took the 66 off my back, extended that, gave it to one of the other boys, grabbed the PKM gunner off the other team, and I was like, right, on go, I'm gonna sledge straight through that wall. You're gonna get up, fire your 66 into that building, and you're gonna pop up and put a round through every empty kind of area of that building, all right? So 1, 2, 3, go. Everything kind of kicks off. I go through the wall, I think with 3 good whacks, give a good breach, get the lads through. We clear that compound, we cleared the next compound, the next one. And yeah, it got kind of bad. We spent the whole rest of the day. It was soon after that we ended up getting mortars and artillery kind of plastered on us, and that didn't let up for the whole rest of the day. So pretty much if you got a Jane's manual of every Russian weapon system, we pretty much went cover to cover. And it was kind of weird. So most of the time that we weren't attacking, we would hide away either inside buildings or get down in the basements. And it was much later on in the day. We were all really hungry, calling for reinforcements, no comms, radios failed. It was a little bit of a mess, and there was an explosion slightly outside, followed by a load of swearing. There was another explosion right by my sentry that kind of, we were down in a basement, and it picked the sentry up and threw him down the stairs. So I kind of grab him, and I was like, are you hit? And he just shouts, my legs. In that time, 2 guys had started to go up the stairs, and that was Mickey and Ned. And there was another explosion, literally probably about that far off the back of Ned's head, right in between them. So Mickey was 2 steps up, Ned was 2 steps low, and it kind of went off in between them. It blew Ned straight into me. I went, are you hit? And he just made a noise. So I was like, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? Mickey took a bit of frag in the arm, Ned took a little bit in the back of his head. I can remember Josh going, what the F was that? And I was like, I think that was a UGL. And he's like, that's not good. I goes, we can't stay here. So I kicked all the crap out of the way. Part of the ceiling had kind of stoved in on us as well. Kicked all of that crap out of the way, led the guys up the steps, counted them out and threw them into the building opposite. The lads that were already in that building were like, mate, we've just been hit in here. So I was like, fucking hell, great. I think by that stage, I had torn my bicep on that arm. So I couldn't actually hold my rifle properly. So I'm like, right, grab Ned. I was like, Ned, do you remember the first basement we were in this morning? He was like, yeah. I goes, right, lead them there now. Fucking give me a last man call. So count everybody out. I couldn't get all the way up or all the way down. So it was one of them where at the time we were under fire from a couple of T-72s from across the water. They were kind of pummeling us, and things got pretty pretty kind of rough. We made it all the way back to that basement. We all kind of go inside. And to be honest, by that stage, we'd been fighting long and hard. You know, it was one of them where ammo was looking a little shaky, grenades were looking a little shaky. And it was one of them moments where you're like, right, suck it up. A couple of the lads start kind of piling in a bit, and one of them starts hyperventilating. So grab him, sit him next to you. I'm like, it's all right, no worries. You know, it's been a bad day. You'll get over it, sort of thing. And he's like, thanks, thank you. Soon after that, I had to stop the sentry from mowing down a lone Ukrainian with no rifle running towards us. So I was like, right, come in here. So grab him, and he's like, starts spieling Ukrainian at us. And I'm like, mate, I don't understand. So he does this hand motion like that and makes like a boat engine noise. I was like, a boat? Have you come in a boat? And he's like, yes. So I'm like, right, come with us. We take him, have a little kind of conflab, and get to that stage where like black team had to get off the X. So we all pile into a boat, which was dangerously overloaded, but we managed. We all squashed in there. It was dark by now, so we'd been fighting all day, and we start kind of heading back, still under, you know, there's mortars and artillery. We were completely surrounded at the time. We had a minefield at our back, and the only other option was to swim. And in black team at the time, there were 2 guys that could not swim. And I'm like, and well, 3 if you included me, because I had a fucked arm. So I'm like, right, everyone in the boat, stay quiet. And then one of the Kiwis looks up and he's like, is that a drone? And I think somebody else goes, yeah, I think it is. Soon after that, the entire universe kind of implodes on us, and we're getting rounds land in, well, pretty much every direction, all around us. All I remember is one of the lads that couldn't swim just looks at me and goes, please don't let me go in the water. I was like that. Yeah, and I'm thinking, no, so everything's all right. And I'm thinking, please don't let me go in the water, because I'm effed as well. But we get back probably about 25 yards away from the embarkation point, which was where we were headed. The engine jacks, so just dies. A couple of lads kind of pop over and swim us in. We're under fire again, mortars and artillery. So get the lads up, get them in a basement. You can see and hear enemy drones. Some of them actually smack into trees and crash on the ground. It got quite bad, so you know, we told some of the boys, like, right, go, get out, get back to the kind of safe house, which they did. We must have been there probably about 40 odd minutes. Can't hear any boats, can't see anyone, like, waiting. Let's go down and have a look. So we walked down to the riverbank, and the next thing I know, one of the boys has got the boat driver by the scruff of the neck, pulls him out of the bush and goes, what the fuck are you doing here? The guy starts babbling in Ukrainian, so the guy just points a rifle in his chest and he's like, you go back down there. He goes, if you come back with an empty boat, I will shoot you. So the guy's like, yep, in his boat. He jumps, he goes off down the river. We never see him again. I don't know where he ended up, whether he sunk, whether he was hit by mortars and artillery, or if he's still with us. But we sit, we wait for ages. We eventually kind of get to that stage where we're like, we got nothing left. Like, you know, don't know where anyone is. So we pull back. We pull all the way back to the safe house. and yeah, had to kind of stop two of the boys doing something unseemly to the guy that was commanding the operation, who I think we woke up. He was getting his head down at that stage. We're like, right, fuck you, and we're going. So we jump back in the vehicle, drive back towards the embarkation point, and find the majority of, I can't remember, Alpha team, absolutely piss wrapped. They'd swum back and said the other team was kind of swimming back as well. So yeah, I think it was by the next morning, everybody was back in the safe house, which, yeah, that was a little exciting. So that was one of mine and Ned's little issues that we had. But
Was that commander, was he on the assault with you, or he stayed back the entire time?
no, he stayed well back. Apparently still a commander now. I've got no time for the guy, to be honest.
A Westerner or a local?
No, he was a local.
Okay.
So yeah.
Did you guys have mortars, artillery, anything like that you could call in, or was that exhausted?
No, we had absolutely nothing. The only help that came across was 4 Ukrainian engineers pitched up partway through the day to help us, and that was it. That was the only support we had. So that commander kept just saying, push, keep pushing, and yeah, we kind of got the feeling that he didn't really give a shit. But
Yeah, that seemed to be kind of a recurring theme, actually, when the commander wasn't with his guys leading the troops. It was always, you call them up and it's always, yeah, we want you to keep going. This is honestly probably universal, I would say, when they're not there with you. So
yeah.
So you had the 7-8 that you had captured.
Yeah.
Those guys get handed off. Did they get just thrown in a river? What do they do usually
No,
in that case?
So after kind of talking some of the boys out from doing some pretty rough things, they actually got put in a boat and sent back. So yeah, they actually, it kind of worked out in the commander that wasn't there in his favour. So it kind of looked pretty good on him. In all fairness, I think the entire operation was a bit of a false one. I don't think that we had half the support, half of anything. I think it was just his idea. But yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be the first or last one of those for us.
No.
We did the entire Iraq assault exactly like that.
Yeah.
On 2-hour notice, I believe, too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So from there, timeline-wise, that was probably August or something like that, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think I saw you the day after we went to the gym.
That's
You
right.
said, I'm going to go bench, and you were benching whatever, 400 pounds, and you just look at your arm, and it's just all bruised up. Try to climb out of a window or climb in a window or whatever the fuck you did. So.
Yeah. I ended up doing a speed pull-up on one hand. So I was stood on what I thought was solid asbestos, and it just gave way. So I ended up doing pretty much a speed pull-up with all my kit on.
Nice. So I'm sure that asbestos will get you here in the next 10, 20 years with cancer. So good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what gets you, not the war. Not the 14 deployments, 15 deployments, just asbestos. Yeah, all right. So, from that point, let's see. I mean, that'll take us probably right up. I mean, we actually did a lot of stuff. You guys formed Great Team around that time, shortly after.
Yeah.
That was direct action team you guys did. And then from there, I mean, we can go straight into getting your fucking brains blown out if you want to. So,
Yeah.
kind of similar setup. You know, what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, kind of the aftermath of that as well. So kind of, if you want to talk about what was supposed to happen,
Yeah.
On this.
So we got called from another job, called kind of forward, had no idea what was happening, kind of got there, and then we realised, actually, look, there are 9 Ukrainians. They are stuck in a basement. The 4-story kind of building that was above them, so 1 underground, 3 above ground, was full of Russians, and they wanted them out. So we got kind of the call. A couple of Legion teams had already tried. So the 2 kind of previous nights, a couple of Legion teams had kind of attempted, come under fire, took casualties, not even got to the target building. So we kind of got the call. I think all up there were 40 guys, and this was on the outskirts of a much bigger urban area. The Russians were in full assault, and this place had been overrun, and there were 9 Ukrainian survivors stuck in this basement. They wanted them back, so it must have been somebody's son or heir, and they were willing to sacrifice 40 guys. And they were like, "You all right leading this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know where it is, but okay, I'll lead the assault bit." So they were kind of happy with that. I spoke to a couple of the TLs that had kind of attempted before, just said, "Which way did you go? What actually happened?" And they said they had tried to move twice down a strip woods that led to a row of buildings. The strip woods was on the edge of a rail track, and it was surrounded by kind of open fields, a bit of rail infrastructure, and these kind of strip woods. And the team the night before ours, one of their guys stepped on a mine, came under fire. They took casualties and extracted in a bit of a shit show. So I kind of mulled all this over, and I'm like, right, some of our guys don't have night vision. So the strip woods is kind of out. You don't know what kind of mines or Russian positions are kind of in that strip woods, so that rules that out. Also, darkness is out because some of our guys didn't have nods. So that kind of left us with a limited approach. My view on it was we could make best time, and someone was unlikely to have booby-trapped the rail line. So I was like, okay, let's arrange for a massive distraction, HIMARS long, mortars and artillery in a little bit closer, and then mortars literally right on our nose. So I arranged a bit of a kind of scattergun effect for that, and the idea being just get everybody's heads down. We were going to get to a friendly checkpoint just short of the position with the 9 Ukrainians in there. We were going to get to that friendly checkpoint, wait for the distraction, cut down this rail track at first light, get to the building with the Ukrainians in it, hit it with every rocket and missile that we could, forge forward, punch in, clear to the basement, get the lads out, and throw them back down the line. To say it didn't go that way is probably a bit of an understatement. So all the distraction, everything went perfect. We had an old Ukrainian sentry that had actually done sentry duty in that building, knew exactly which one it was. His job was to get us to gap in the fence and literally give us that. I was just fanning the guys out, so just kind of putting people in position when Russian come running out of the building, probably 20 yards in front of us. And he came out with a red flare in his hands, hit the red flare, Looking back, I think that was probably a warning that enemy is either right there or, in that vicinity. We engaged him, so 8 or 9 guys opened fire on him, including a GPMG gunner. You could see dust kind of popping off his uniform. He turned around and actually made it back into the building. Probably died very soon after. We immediately came under fire from a number of different sort of positions. Won that kind of firefight. Everything was still kind of cooking off. I gave a standby for rapid fire. I then moved alone to go and recce the breach point. So reached the target building. You could see the walls were very broken. You could see through some of them. So I kind of raised my rifle, have a quick peep around the corner, and came pretty much nose to nose with a Russian. Took care of him, put him down, stepped back out of the way. A 66 kind of came through that doorway. Everybody kind of fired loads of missiles, load of small arms. I gave need 3 call, got 3 guys. I goes, right, we're going in there, the doorway. By that stage, part of the floor above had fallen into the doorway, and it was going to take us a good 8 or 9 seconds to kind of get over that. So I began to pie, and just as I kind of stepped around the corner, there was another Russian stood right where his mate had just died, with his weapon raised. He splintered all the door frame. I put him down, was still under fire from further back in the building, stepped back out of the way. There was then a shout of grenade, so we then started getting pummeled with grenades out of the top floor. And that's kind of how that assault ended, pretty much grenade after grenade after grenade. Couldn't get more than a couple of syllables back, so pulled back 20 metres to the fire support position, kind of undid our knot in our knickers, got back on it, went again, tried to assault, same thing happens. By that time, one of the other teams had took the building next door, so we pulled back to that building, and I don't know whether we must have hit that target building 14 or 15 times. We were getting real low on ammo. We tried everything. I threw grenades through that doorway. I even threw a homemade TNT charge through it. It had been hit with pretty much every rocket and missile either the NATO or the Russians have kind of built. And they were still kind of swinging. So 14 or 15 times kind of later, one of the ex-SFSG guys was like, how many times are we going to hit this thing? And I was like, yeah, good point. So grabbed a Ukrainian major and a Ukrainian captain. How many times do you want us to hit this thing? The major was kind of up for sticking a pin in it right then and kind of heading back. The captain pretty much dropped his fill at that point, and he was like, that is our men in there, fucking go and get them. That kind of tugs on the old heartstrings a bit, so I'm like, right. Most of our guys were now either fragged up from all the grenades getting thrown out of the top stairs. So I was like, right, anyone still standing, get on my ass, we'll give it another try. We go back. I think that's when Ned took a round through the shoulder. Yeah, he was in a pretty bad way. He actually jumped on top of me when one of the grenades was thrown, which I told him off for. But it got kind of bad, so we pulled back. We then get the call, man down. So I'm like, fuck. Looking at the state of everybody, I was like, if somebody is man down now, they're going to be properly hurt. So I start running back down the row of guys, get to Joe, who also didn't make the end of the day. Get to Joe. I was like, Joe, who's the man down? He's like, I have no idea, buddy. At that moment, everybody comes spilling out of the house. I'm like, right, what's happening? Grab the ex-SFSG lad, and I'm like, what's happening? He was like, lads are done, everybody's pulling out. So I'm like, okay, right, you lead them back to the friendly checkpoint, give me a last man call. Ned refused to leave, so he was pretty chewed up. He had grenade frag in his back and was shot through one shoulder. He refused to go, so me and him kind of left last. We start moving back the same way that we came in, straight down the rail tracks. By this stage, you know, the Russians had drones all over us. You couldn't hiccup or blink without being pummeled by God knows what. We were getting shot at by from odd directions. We were getting shot at by tanks. There was kind of a lot going on. We start moving back down this rail track, and the Ukrainian major and his captain start arguing over a radio. So I'm like down on one knee. In the end, I had to ask Ned. I was like, Ned, what are they doing? So Ned walks up. What's happening? Blah blah blah. Has a quick chat with him. Turns around, looks me right in the eyes, and he goes, "They still got guys back there." I was like, "Oh, you're joking." Okay. We look at each other, and I'm like, "We got to go back." So I thought it was 4 guys. It ended up being 5. Turn back and head back into the Russian onslaught, if you would. I think we got probably about 300 meters into that journey, and 2 guys came blundering through the strip woods. We grabbed them over. One of them was really bleeding, wasn't holding a weapon, was really bleeding out of his arm. So grabbed him by the collar, and I was like, "Are you good?" And he was like, "Yes." I'm like, "Right, fucking go, get out." So we get the wounded sort of off the X, start moving back down the rail track. You can hear a lot of movement sort of either side, a lot of vehicles, a lot of mortars and artillery, all the way back down the train track. You could see the friendly checkpoint getting explosion after explosion, sort of everything kind of launched on it. And I was like, holy shit, that's the safe place where we're going. We get right up to it. To explain, the rail track was dead straight, and it went on pretty much out of eyesight. So it was a dead straight rail track. There was an overpass over it, and I think the Ukis had kind of blown both sides, dropped it onto the rail track, and then built a bunker in one side of it. That was the friendly checkpoint. We got up to that kind of bunker bit, and the Ukrainian major refused to kind of move any further forward. He just took a knee and wouldn't get up. And in the end, I was starting to get the hump with this, because my back was kind of open to the Russians, and I'm like, what is he doing? So Ned walks up to him, has a quick spiel, and then I just see Ned raise his rifle, and he said, "If you don't get up and walk over that berm, I will shoot you where you sit." So I was kind of like, the Ukrainian major had a bit of a fit over that, gets up and pushes over. When we get over the other side of the berm, I could see why he was so reluctant to kind of go. So the other side of the berm was pure carnage. Guys getting tourniqueted, wounded, and it was a bit of a mess. You could hear in people's voices, everybody's voices had kind of gone up a couple of octaves, and you're like, I think the stress of the day is starting to get to lads, so I'll take kind of centre stage. got in the middle, start kind of organising people and everything, and that was when the first tank round blew me clean off my feet. So yeah, T72 main armament round, 125 mil, bang, blew me clean off my feet. I kind of get back up, expecting to see sort of a bit of a mess. Realised, still got a gun, still got a helmet, still got both boots on, and all 4 limbs, and you've got a job to do. So kind of retook my place, controlled everything, and then after that there was a big explosion, and that's when Ned ended up losing his leg. So I was like, right, that's all the control onto me now. Run over to Ned. He was in a bit of a mess. I was like, right, let's get him down the hill. So we pick him up, start kind of dragging him down the hill. Part of his leg had a bit of a bone stuck out of it. That actually got stuck on a tree branch. We tried to kind of pull him off. We ended up having to pull him back and then go around it. Got him in the back of the vehicle, pulled his head over, give him a kiss, whispered something in his ear, said to the driver, right, get him out of here. He never managed to get him out of here. There was a load more artillery and mortars, a load more wounded, and I'm like, right, okay. Take centre stage again. Sort of try and control everything, try and lower everyone's sort of stress level. And that's when the second tank round pretty much landed right in between my legs. It blew the inside off both my legs, and the back off my right one. I remember looking down at the tattered mess that used to be my lower body and thinking, shit, you're in a bit of a bad way there. I remember shouting over to Ned, pointing down, and he's like, yep, gave me the thumbs up.
That's after you got hit. You remember him just giving you a thumbs up?
Yeah. Like we're both in the same game now. But there it was. I don't really remember much after that. All I can remember is by lads that kind of survived. They said they were kind of screaming at me to kind of get in a trench. So I think I got up, went to walk towards the trench, got to the lip of the trench and heard another round coming in. Took a knee, and the round actually landed in the trench. Killed Si, killed Joe, killed George, wounded Bruce, and that was your lot. It also knocked 4 square inches out of my forehead and made me look dead. So from all the accounts that were there, Brucey tried to drag me in the trench, and just got told, no, he's dead, fucking leave him. He severed an artery in his arm, kind of got tourniqueted, dragged off, and I think because I was sort of held up, I just slumped in place. Kevlar managed to hold me up, but I had blood, brains and everything kind of streaming down my face and was completely incoherent. So I think I was the last foreigner to leave that position. So eventually I think I made a noise or did something, and someone realised, fuck, he's still in the game, threw me in the back of a truck, drove me to a field hospital where I believe they managed to save my legs. 1, 2, yep, yeah, they did. So they managed to save my legs, realised that they didn't have enough neuro kind of experience to sort my my head out, so I got kind of bussed further north. Yeah, kind of nuts though, kind of nuts. 4 months in hospital, that cost me, 4 months. But yeah, that was my last, that was the last time I kind of set foot on Ukrainian soil. So that was that.
You remember, I mean, do you remember being in the hospital? Do you remember getting carted out, or you're just drugged up and in a haze? What's the first thing you remember, like waking up, I guess?
So, my wife actually came all the way forward to Dnipro and met me in the hospital in Dnipro. So I don't really remember much of that. I kind of remember possibly Kyiv, because I went, field hospital, then to Dnipro, then up to Kyiv, and then from Kyiv I went elsewhere. But yeah, Kyiv, I kind of have sort of hazy memories. Yeah.
Then through pure fear of your wife beating you is what kept you alive, basically.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And do you remember, we've all, we've seen some of the pictures of your Kevlar after the fact. You kind of mentioned it a little bit. Do you know, like how much brain can a human man lose and still be functional as he is today?
Yeah.
Do you recall on what that might have been?
Well, it was the 4 square inches of skull that actually got knocked out. They rebuilt with, I think it was a titanium plate. That put an infection in my skull that took 4 months of antibiotics to get rid of. They then replaced it, put me a new chunk of skull in. Yeah, it was kind of weird. So I can remember rough bits of the hospital. I remember being stuck in London for weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah, it was kind of wild. But
so you were from the front lines, Dnipro, Kyiv, and then what was the journey back home, I guess, and recovery from Kyiv from there?
So I went back to a hospital somewhere else, stayed there for a few days, got fed my first solid food in that place and promptly threw it up everywhere. Eventually got put on an aircraft, flown back home to a ward in London. So yeah, kind of stayed in a ward in London, and then they eventually kind of packaged me back off home. But
like anything, when you see doctors, they always give you crazy prognosis. I'm sure with your brain, and they were talking about still possibly not even keeping your legs, right?
Yeah.
Throughout this whole time. So what were they telling you, or what were they telling your wife? Kind of outlook.
So okay, so what's next? And she kind of asked that quite often, and the docs were all like, we don't know. There is no wound profile for somebody like this. He should have lost his legs. He should be dead. So she was like, holy shit, do you know what I mean? That was a kind of wake-up call for her. But yeah, it was a weird experience, that.
Yeah, so that experimental 2-pair program is still paying off to this day that you can't talk about.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of nuts though, but there you go.
Yeah, and then everything seems pretty decent now. You still have an open wound in your leg?
Yeah, still got a little open wound, just about the size of a quarter, just on the inside of that thigh. But so out of that leg, I kind of get the feeling that however I knelt down, however it was, that was a through and through. So it's kind of blown the back off this thigh and the inside off there. Looking at it, I think that was a through and through piece of shrapnel. And then this leg, there's a fair chunk of kind of leg missing from there. out of that one, I actually lost my adductor. So yeah, that's gone. But
So T-72s ain't shit, is what you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, weird old day. And the lads in the basement, by all accounts, I think it was maybe the night after or a couple of nights after, they made a break for it. I think one of them was shot and recaptured. One of them did actually make it and escape properly. But yeah, kind of nuts. That kind of nuts.
Were you or Ned or anybody really able to get with those commanders afterwards to see kind of like what was the AAR, their after action, you know, what they thought of everything went down, why it went the way it did, anything like that?
No, so we were, well, the both of us were in a bit of a drug-addled stupor for months afterwards. But yeah, kind of nuts. Do you know the weird thing is? Never felt any pain from my legs, never felt any pain from my head. So I was kind of pretty much out of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the pain was left for Ned and his open wound leg stuck on a tree branch getting dragged. That's what you saved it for.
Yeah.
That's why he gave you the thumbs up. He knew. He's like, oh yeah, this one's for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You know, from there afterwards, like we talked about before, you've just a shitload of experience, combat all over the place type of thing. What's the big difference for you? You know, like we talked before, this is just an extremely brutal war, you know, and they told that to me when I first showed up in Ukraine. You know, they said this is just not the same as this, which is very true. But, you know, like any grown man who thinks you're tough, you've seen everything, this, and that, right? Until you actually kind of see and feel that helpless feeling almost, I think, it was a first for me, you know, helpless feeling, because I was 21, 22 in Afghanistan. You go doing what you're doing, you're like, oh, I'm in the U.S. military. I literally can't be killed. We do everything better, blah, 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 blah. You know, and then you go start fighting in Ukraine, and pretty much what you said, there's days you run out of food. There's days you run out of water. Yeah. They tell you there's tanks and artillery and mortars ready to go for you. You show up there's nothing. It's just you and your boys. Yeah. You know, so, but from someone with your experience, which is, you know, vastly more than mine, and probably 99% of people who've experienced combat in their life, I guess some of the big takeaways are some of the differences between, I don't know, like I said, the brutality of you know, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, you know, even some of the other stuff that you've done that you don't mention, versus a war like this, I guess, and kind of some lessons learned for you and some things you might be able to, you know, tell your own military.
Yeah, so Ukraine was very different. Probably not very different in people's kind of attitudes towards each other. There's always kind of hatred in wars, but this was the capability of your average kind of enemy unit, which ranged from pretty much illiterate guys just kind of thrown into a uniform, shown the pointy end of an AK, and that was it, all the way to kind of tier 1 soft level, which was kind of nuts. That kind of depended on where you were, what you were sent to do. There were a number of different kind of factors involving that, and it was literally, you know, on a night time you could end up kind of facing people that would do certain things. In the daytime you would end up kind of facing people that didn't know how to dress, how to kind of equip themselves, wouldn't be wearing body armor or helmets, and you were kind of like, there is a big kind of disparity here between different enemy units. But yeah, some of that was kind of a little odd to deal with. But I think probably the biggest thing that took quite a steep learning curve was the amount of artillery, air and everything else that kind of got piled on you. So all I remember was at one stage the Ukrainians put in a 6-round cap on any mortar or artillery kind of mission. So whatever you kind of had to hit, You'd have to fight for that to get hit, and they would fire 6 rounds at it, and that was it, bust. 6 rounds was all you were getting. And on an average day, what you would get fired back was wild. So it would be 200 to 300 rounds would kind of come back the way, which took a little bit of getting used to. I think the other thing was armour as well, like having enemy armour actually kind of chase after you. Yeah, there were quite a number of things. Obviously enemy armour fucking can sometimes get you, but yeah, it was kind of a little bit weird. I think drones as well was something that kind of cropped up out there. Electronic warfare. There were a lot of kind of things that were very different to what we'd sort of faced previous.
Yeah, I think things like this too, you know, like we had anti-armor teams, right, in our line units and things like that, but it wasn't anything we actually thought of, right, you know.
Yeah.
But you hear anti-armor team now, it's like it's very vital, you know. Don't fucking
Yeah.
shoot your rockets at anything stupid, you know.
Yeah.
You know, be disciplined in what you're doing, type of thing, because it is a big difference. The difference between your squad, I mean, really I wouldn't say a full platoon. There's not many times we went out with 30 plus guys, to be honest, you know. You probably 15 to 20, but still to be able to have that capability makes a big difference. Or at least when you're shooting, you know, anti-armor, you know, it keeps them on their toes where they're like, okay, fuck, let's keep a little bit of a different distance, type of thing. You know, and same thing with the drones. And of course, our favorite parts is when you hear it overhead, you don't know if it's friendly or enemy. And you finally, you know, when you finally get comms, you're like, yeah, we don't have any drones up. We're like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good day for us. So.
Yeah, it was on one of the jobs where we were on the water, and we got stoofed by multiple kind of grad strikes. I got a couple of them on film actually, and it was only in the daylight. You kind of looked up and somebody goes, "There's a drone up there," and it was kind of, do we shoot, do we not? And the 50 cal gunner had a go at it on our boat, and in the end I was like, so I fired a mag, everybody else fired a mag. People were reloading and firing at it, and it turns out that was actually one of our drones. So yeah, kind of nuts. But
yeah, but I mean, that's honestly that's the classic story, because we're gonna lose a Mavic 2 or something like that, right? You know, they got those dime a dozen, but also that's the communications issue too. You know, if they would just say, yeah, we got drones up, then we know. That makes our job a little bit easier. But I think just communication, not even on a small level, it's just, I think, kind of like a battalion level asset where it's like, yep, we got drones, bop, 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 bop. But just the way their military is set up, you know, they don't tell you shit. They don't tell you what they got. They don't tell you where it's at. They don't tell you where people are at. And that's why you end up with, you know, unfortunately, a lot of fratricide in wars like this. That, and people are super skittish too, because you know, you don't know. It's a little different than you know, not as bad as Taliban fighting. They're wearing civilian clothes, but you know, still, it's you just don't know what's happening at almost any moment. You know, just from communication. But yeah, well, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up from there, and then that'll be it for us.